Hello YouTube. I just want to say congratulations. I have 1,000 people following me and I have no reason to understand why. So I'm just curious if you could tell me exactly why you're here. Is it because of my good looks or my fancy tools or my crazy ideas or what I do with paper and type bond? Or is it the wing moran? You just want to see this actually work and you want to see it live up to its full potential? Or is it the human propulsion using fish tails and dolphin tails? Anyway, I have another idea for this. What is the fastest fish in the ocean? The fastest fish is a sailfish or a tuna, not a penguin or sea turtle. Those propel themselves with flapping wings, basically, and that's what the Mirage drive is. But no one has successfully made a propulsion system that matches the speed of the fastest mammals, like the dolphins and the fastest fish, which are the sailfish. And the reason for that is because they don't only have a tail, they have a body and they undulate like this. So I have come up with an idea to make this happen. I'm not a machinist, so I can't make this, but this is a pedal powered contraption. Being a woodworker, I can make things out of wood, but I'm not a machinist, so I can't make this out of metal. Anyway, I need money, funding, so that I can turn this into a fish body with two fins. Fins on the main body, just like the fins of a dolphin, and then a high aspect ratio tail, like you would see on a sailfish. I've already figured out the mechanics of it. It needs to be made out of machined aluminum or steel or high density plastic or something. Anyway, so I notice other people, like they say, you know, buy me a coffee and all this stuff. I don't really know what that means, but maybe I can figure out how to get funding off of my YouTube channel. I never actually thought I would ever have 1,000 people following me. And in fact, my father was planning on getting funding to build a 40-foot version, and he was going to sail around the world and break all the speed records. Unfortunately, he died before he was able to do that. He died on the solstice, the summer solstice in 1989. I've been thinking a lot about him. I've been thinking a lot about him as a designer, as an inventor. One day he had some friends and they were involved in racing, and they knew that my dad was smart and invented stuff and had an engineering mind, and they asked him, you know, how can we reduce drag on our race cars, these Indy cars or whatever. And my dad's idea was to put an arc on the bottom of the car and remove all those crazy wings and things. And so one day he built a Venturi tube. It was aluminum. It was like a little box, and it had an angle. It kind of had this shape to it. And he asked me if I could help him. I was in like middle school. He asked me if I could help him do a test. I said, sure. And so we got in a Mustang, and he had a little pressure tube sticking out of the box, and it had a column of water, and I was in the passenger side seat. He just told me to hold it and tell me if the bubble goes up or down and how far. And he got our Mustang up to 100 miles an hour. Crazy. And he stuck the thing out the window, and he was like driving with one hand, 100 miles an hour, going around a curve. And I was like just looking at his bubble and telling him how far it moved. That's the kind of crazy stuff that that inventors do. Nowadays, everybody is just so handicapped by technology. Nobody wants to build anything with their hands. Everybody thinks they have to have a 3D printer or a CNC, milling machine or whatever. But I think the reason people follow me is because of the ideas, and they're interested in the science, and I'm interested in science. Okay, let's do a little science experiment. So the idea that I described that my dad had and was testing is based on the Bernoulli principle, and it has to do with as air enters a narrower channel, the static pressure decreases, the dynamic pressure increases. So what does that mean? More air particles are now traveling in this direction and less are traveling in that direction. So because the impact of the actual fluid perpendicular to the surface decreases here, the pressure decreases. So if I blow air through this channel, a lot of people think that it would blow these two pieces apart, but let's see what happens. So they immediately collapse on top of each other. So let's put this on the bottom of a car, this arc-shaped plate, and is this going to fly off the table, or is it going to... So if I had made these out of compressible material, you would see that it would be sucked downward. So anytime you see a curved surface, just know that there is, as it goes through a fluid, it wants to move in this direction towards the middle of the curve. And that has to do with the fact that the sum of the dynamic and static pressures has to remain the same throughout a cross-sectional area of the fluid as it goes from one area to the other. An easy way to visualize this is, okay, take a square, a cube, and imagine particles bouncing in all directions. And if you say that some of them, half of them are going this way and half are going this way, then a 45-degree angle from diagonal to diagonal, it kind of represents the average direction of the fluid. But if you accelerate it, the vector changes direction, and the length of the vector is the same. So in other words, the density of the air doesn't change, or the density of the fluid. It just, the vector changes direction. So what does that mean? It means that the vector in this direction increases and the vector in that direction goes down. It's just trigonometry. So there's a lesson in Bernoulli's principle, which relates to the bottom of a race car, which if it was arc-shaped, it would suck the car down on the road. Okay, so here's one more story about my dad. I was a freshman in high school. I think I was taking geometry, and our geometry teacher gave us a riddle for extra credit. She said, okay, some engineers, they build a bridge. The bridge is 1 mile long. It's between two cliffs, but they make the bridge 1 foot longer than the actual distance. And the question is, how far does the bridge arc upward? And because it's 1 foot longer, 5,280 feet plus 1. And I had no idea how to solve this problem. And I come home from school and my dad is at home, and I tell him about it, and he goes, And then he goes, about 50 feet. And I have no idea how he came up with that number, but the next day I go to school, and the teacher goes to the solution, and she draws a triangle, and the triangle has a hypotenuse and it has a base, and turns out that the height of the bridge was 51 feet. How the heck did he figure that out? So there is a difference between people that are engineers and people that know how to invent stuff. And the difference is you make the connections. You see, you learn something, and then you figure out how to apply it in the real world. And you take what you learn and you make observations. And there was nobody better at doing that than my dad. Compared to my dad, I cannot say that I'm a genius or anything like that. I can say that he was a genius. So anyway, I just want to say thank you. It's been fun doing all these videos. It's fun that knowing that I have people interested in Newtonian physics and science and pedal propulsion and folding punts and fast hydroplaning winged sailing crafts and things like that. I really miss my dad. We would have probably been in business together. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, which is pretty much the least inventive place in the world. It's really great if you're, coming up with public policy or trying to suck money from the government or try to sell your products to the U.S. military. Or if you are a doctor and you work at the National Institutes of Health, which probably is the largest employer in the state of Maryland. But if you're a product designer or an inventor, it's not the ideal place to be. So I really appreciate all the people out there that are like-minded, that like to experiment, that a lot of people give me tips on my boat construction, because I'm, even though I know what I'm doing when it comes to building furniture, building a boat is so different, because you have to everything has to be super light, and there's all these dynamic forces on a boat. And anyway, so thank you for all of your comments and suggestions on strengthening my hull so that it remains light but doesn't break. I'm sure there's a lot of people that follow me that are on duckworks.com, where I post a lot of boat inventions and scientific research into the science of hydroplaning and why it's better than a long and skinny hull, and why it's better than foiling. And so anyway, just saying thanks, and hope to meet some of you in the future.